The overgrown lawn. The overgrown lawn was a monster. Waist-high weeds choked the pathetic blades of grass, a testament to months of neglect. A vibrant green jungle mocking her return. Maya glared at it, sweat already beading on her forehead. Her parents were due back from their cruise in 3 days, and this was an embarrassment. She wrestled the old, sputtering lawnmower from the shed. It hadn't been used since last summer, and judging by the rust clinging to its frame, it wasn't happy about being disturbed. She yanked the cord. Nothing. Again. Just a pathetic wheeze followed by silence. A fly buzzed annoyingly around her head. She swatted at it, frustration bubbling inside her. This was exactly how she didn't want to spend her first day back. She yanked the cord again, harder this time. A sharp crack echoed through the yard, followed by a metallic thunk. The cord hung limp. Great, she muttered, tossing the useless rope onto the lawn. Now what? Her dad always handled this kind of thing. She never paid attention, too busy with, well, everything. Her gaze drifted next door. Michael Davies. Mike. He always seemed to be tinkering in his garage, fixing things. He had a meticulously manicured lawn, each blade of grass standing at attention. The contrast between his yard and hers was almost comical. A wave of nervousness washed over her. She barely knew him, just polite nods and the occasional hello over the fence. He seemed quiet. Intimidating, in a gentle way. She smoothed down her hair, suddenly conscious of her ratty t-shirt and shorts. Taking a deep breath, she walked across the small patch of shared lawn, her sandals sinking into the overgrown grass. His house was neat and tidy, a small porch swaying gently in the breeze. She hesitated, then raised her hand and knocked. The door opened almost immediately. Mike stood there, a warm smile crinkling the corners of his eyes. He was taller than she remembered, with kind eyes and a dusting of grease on his cheek. He wore a worn, comfortable-looking flannel shirt and jeans. Maya, hi. What a nice surprise. Everything all right? His voice was a low rumble, surprisingly soothing. She swallowed, suddenly feeling awkward. Hi, Mike. Not really. I was wondering. I mean, would you happen to know anything about lawnmowers? Mine seems to be broken. She gestured weakly toward her unruly lawn. His smile widened slightly. Lawnmowers, huh? Let's take a look. He stepped out onto the porch, his gaze taking in the scene. Looks like you've got quite the jungle going on there. There was no judgment in his tone, just amusement. He followed her back to her yard, his eyes scanning the broken machine. He knelt down, examining the cord. Snapped clean through. Easy fix, though. I've got some spare cord in the garage. And probably a few other tools that might come in handy. He glanced up at her, his eyes sparkling with a quiet enthusiasm. Tell you what, why don't you grab a glass of lemonade, and I'll see if I can get this thing purring again. Mower mechanics and friendly chat. All right, Mike said, clapping his hands together, a light dusting of sawdust already clinging to his worn jeans. Let's have a look-see. He knelt beside the recalcitrant mower, its bright yellow casing looking sadly out of place against the backdrop of his meticulously organized garage. The scent of oil and something akin to petunias hung in the air. Maya hovered, feeling like an intruder in his surprisingly tidy space. It started sputtering, then died. Won't turn over at all now. He ran a hand over the engine, his touch surprisingly gentle. Could be a few things. Spark plug, fuel line, maybe even just bad gas. He popped the hood, revealing a tangle of wires and metal. This is a pretty standard Briggs & Stratton, he explained, pointing to various components. See this? This is the carburetor. It mixes air and fuel. If it's clogged. Maya peered in, trying to decipher the mechanical jargon. Clogged how? Old gas can gum it up, especially if it's been sitting all winter. He unscrewed a small cap and peered inside. Yep, looks like we've got some varnish buildup here. He rummaged through a drawer, emerging with a can of carburetor cleaner and a small brush. We'll give this a good scrub. He patiently explained each step, his voice calm and reassuring. Maya found herself not just listening, but actually understanding. She handed him tools as he needed them, the cool metal a grounding sensation against her palm. Now hold this, he instructed, handing her a small wrench. Just keep pressure on it while I loosen this bolt. Their fingers brushed, a fleeting moment that sent a surprising jolt through her. He didn't seem to notice, his brow furrowed in concentration. After a few minutes of scrubbing and tinkering, he declared, "All right, let's give her a try." He pulled the starter cord. Nothing. He adjusted something, pulled again. Still nothing. He scratched his head, a thoughtful frown creasing his forehead. Sometimes they can be stubborn. He pulled the cord again, this time with a grunt. The engine sputtered, coughed, then roared to life. Maya clapped, a genuine smile spreading across her face. You did it. You're a lifesaver. He grinned, a flash of boyish charm that made her heart skip a beat. Just a bit of mechanical persuasion. He shut off the engine. Probably best to drain that old gas and put some fresh stuff in. Got a gas can? Yeah, in the shed. She hesitated. Want some help? Sure, 2 hands are always better than 1. As they walked towards the shed, he asked, So, how long have you been mowing your own lawn? Not long, she admitted. Just moved in a few months ago. Never really had a lawn before. He chuckled. Welcome to suburbia. Lawn care is practically a religion around here. They spent the next half hour draining the old gas, replacing the spark plug just for good measure, Mike said, and topping off the oil. They worked side by side, a comfortable silence punctuated by the clinking of tools and the occasional burst of laughter. Maya found herself enjoying his company more than she'd expected. He was patient, kind, and surprisingly funny. And beneath his quiet demeanor, she sensed a depth, a hint of something more that she wanted to explore. As she watched him carefully tighten a bolt, she asked, So, Mike, how long have you been a mower mechanic? He looked up, surprised. Oh, I'm not a mechanic. Just, always been good with engines. My dad taught me. A shadow passed over his face. He was a mechanic. Owned his own shop. Intentional problems. The mower sputtered, coughed, and died halfway through the second row. Maya feigned frustration, slamming her fist lightly on the faded green hood. Seriously? Again? Mike, who'd been edging the flower beds lining her property, straightened, a concerned frown creasing his forehead. He wiped his brow with a worn handkerchief before ambling over. Let's take a look. He knelt, his movements surprisingly fluid for a man his age. Maya, hovering nearby, watched him examine the engine. He didn't seem to suspect a thing. The loosened bolt, strategically placed where it wouldn't cause any real damage, was her handiwork. He muttered, his fingers tightening the offending nut. Seems like this bolt just worked its way loose. Happens sometimes with older models. He gave the cord a sharp pull, and the engine roared back to life. Keep an eye on it, he advised, rising. Thanks, Mike. You're a lifesaver. Maya offered him a grateful smile, prolonging the moment. Say, what are you planting there? Those look interesting. He gestured toward the flower bed with a dirt-stained hand. Heirloom tomatoes. Brandywine variety. They're a little finicky, but the flavor is worth it. His face lit up, a boyish enthusiasm replacing his usual reserve. I've been gardening since I was a kid. My grandfather taught me everything I know. Maya leaned closer, genuinely interested. I've always wanted to try growing my own vegetables. My thumb is more brown than green, though. He chuckled, a warm, rumbling sound. It just takes patience. And a little know-how. I've got some extra seedlings if you're interested. I'd love that, Maya replied, making a mental note to find out what kind of soil she needed. The next day, the mower died spectacularly, belching black smoke and refusing to restart. This time, Maya had disconnected a spark plug wire. Mike arrived with his toolbox, a look of mild exasperation on his face. "This is becoming a habit," he said, but his tone was gentle. As he tinkered, Maya noticed a small, intricately carved wooden bird perched on the edge of his toolbox. "That's beautiful. Did you make that?" He paused, a flicker of surprise in his eyes. "Yeah, I dabble in woodworking. It's relaxing." He hesitated, then added, "My wife used to collect them." His voice was quiet, tinged with a sadness Maya couldn't ignore. "It's really good," she said softly, wanting to steer the conversation away from painful memories. Do you sell them?" "No, not really. I mostly make them for myself. Or for friends." He reconnected the spark plug wire, and the engine sputtered back to life. "Maybe you could make one for me sometime," Maya suggested, a playful glint in her eyes. Mike looked up, his gaze meeting hers. A faint smile touched his lips. "Maybe I will." Whispers on the wind. The last bolt stubbornly resisted, and Mike grunted, wrench slipping in his hand. Sarah used to say I had the patience of a saint when it came to engines. But she was wrong. I just hate admitting defeat. He chuckled, a low, rumbling sound that settled comfortably in the afternoon quiet. Maya paused, wiping grease from her own hands with a rag. "Sarah?" Mike stilled, his gaze fixed on the recalcitrant bolt. The chuckle vanished, replaced by a stillness that felt heavier than the silence before. He finally looked up, his eyes a shade darker than Maya remembered. "My wife. She passed away, a few years back. Cancer." The air thickened. Maya felt a pang of something she couldn't quite name. Not pity, exactly, but a deep empathy. "I'm so sorry, Mike." He shrugged, a gesture that seemed to shrink him somehow. "It was a long time ago. But some things you just don't get over, you know." He picked up the wrench again, but didn't immediately resume working. Instead, he began to talk about Sarah. About her infectious laugh, her love for gardening, the way she could coax even the most stubborn roses into bloom. He spoke softly, his voice tinged with a wistful affection that painted a vivid picture of a woman Maya had never met, yet somehow felt she knew. Across the street, behind the lace-curtained window of a small, meticulously kept bungalow, Patty Miller watched. She'd been meaning to return the casserole dish she'd lent to Agnes 2 doors down, but something, or rather, someone had caught her eye. That young woman, Maya, was back over at Mike Davies' place. And they were laughing. Laughing. Patty hadn't heard Mike laugh like that in, well, she couldn't remember the last time. She frowned, her lips pursed into a disapproving line. It wasn't right. Not so soon after Sarah. Later that evening, while Agnes was admiring Patty's prize-winning geraniums, Patty casually mentioned, "Did you see that young Maya girl over at Mike's again today? Seems like she's been spending an awful lot of time there lately." Agnes, a sweet, elderly woman with a penchant for floral prints, blinked. "Oh? Well, Mike's a lonely man. Maybe she's just being neighborly." Patty snorted. "Neighborly? Spending hours tinkering with his lawnmower. I don't know, Agnes. Seems a bit forward if you ask me. Especially considering, well, you know." She trailed off, letting the unspoken implications hang in the air. The next day, while watering her petunias, Patty saw Mrs. Henderson from number 12. "Morning, Martha," she called out, her voice deceptively cheerful. "Have you seen that Maya girl visiting Mike Davies? I swear, she's over there more than I am. Some people just have no sense of decorum." The whispers on the wind had begun. Small, at first, barely audible. But Patty Miller was a skilled gardener, and gossip, like a weed, had a way of taking root and spreading quickly. Parental concerns. The station wagon, affectionately nicknamed the Whale by Maya, lumbered to a halt at the curb. Her father, Richard, a man whose receding hairline did little to diminish his booming presence, got out first. He surveyed the lawn with a critical eye, his brow furrowed. "Well, Maya, looks like you've kept the grass green. Though I still think you should invest in a decent sprinkler system." Maya's mother, Susan, emerged more slowly, adjusting her floral scarf. "Richard, dear, it looks lovely. Much better than I expected, considering." She trailed off, giving Maya a pointed look. As Maya helped them unload suitcases filled with carefully folded sweaters and enough homemade cookies to feed a small army, Patty materialized from across the street. She was wielding a pair of pruning shears and a smile as bright as the geraniums spilling from her window boxes. "Susan. Richard. Welcome, welcome. Maya didn't tell me you were coming. You must be exhausted after the drive." Patty bustled over, air-kissing Susan on both cheeks. "My, the lawn is looking good, isn't it? Especially with Maya spending so much time elsewhere." She winked conspiratorially. "Richard, ever the direct one?" asked elsewhere. "What do you mean, Patty?" Patty snipped a dead head from her geranium with unnecessary force. "Oh, you know, just neighborly visits. Maya's been such a help to Michael. Poor man, living all alone like that. It's sweet of her, really." Though at her age, she let the sentence hang in the air, thick with implication. Susan's smile faltered. "Michael. Is that the man next door, Patty? The one, older than Maya?" Patty nodded, her eyes wide with feigned innocence. "He's a lovely man, but yes, quite a bit older. Divorced, you know. But I'm sure it's all perfectly innocent. Maya's always been such a helpful girl." Later, after Patty had retreated to her house, leaving a lingering scent of gossip in her wake, Maya sat with her parents on the porch swing. The setting sun painted the sky in hues of orange and purple, but the atmosphere felt strained. "So this Michael," Richard began, his voice carefully neutral. "Patty seems to think you've been spending a lot of time with him." Maya sighed. "Dad, I helped him fix my lawnmower. And we've talked. He's just a neighbor." "A neighbor who's old enough to be your father, Maya," Susan interjected, her voice laced with worry. "We just want to make sure you're being careful. You're so young, so vulnerable." "I am being careful, Mom. I'm not stupid." Maya's voice rose slightly. "He's not preying on me, if that's what you're thinking. He's just nice." Richard leaned forward, his gaze intense. "Nice isn't always enough, Maya. We just want you to be aware of the potential for complications. We came all this way to see you, and to make sure you're safe and happy." Maya crossed her arms, feeling a familiar wave of teenage rebellion wash over her, even though she wasn't a teenager anymore. "I am happy. And I can take care of myself." The swing creaked in the ensuing silence. A daughter's defense. The slam of the front door echoed through the house, a percussive exclamation point on the end of Maya's agonizing day. She found her parents already in the living room, the air thick with unspoken accusations. Her mother, Carol, sat rigidly on the edge of the floral couch, a porcelain doll about to shatter. Her father, David, stood by the window, his usual calm demeanor replaced with a stormy frown. "Maya, we need to talk about Mike," her father began, his voice low and strained. "I figured," she snapped, throwing her backpack onto the armchair with unnecessary force. The worn fabric groaned in protest. "Did Mrs. Henderson call again? Did she have more juicy details about what exactly?" "Helping me with my lawn mower." "Don't be sarcastic, Maya," Carol interjected, her voice trembling slightly. "This is serious. People are talking. They're saying things." Maya's anger flared. "What things?" "That I'm friends with someone who isn't my age. That I dared to speak to a man who isn't creepy or leering." She paced the room, her bare feet padding softly against the hardwood floor. The late afternoon sun cast long, distorted shadows, mimicking the way the neighborhood was twisting her interactions with Mike. "It's not just that, honey," David said, turning from the window. He pinched the bridge of his nose, a gesture Maya knew meant he was trying to remain patient. "It's inappropriate. He's a grown man, Maya. You're barely out of high school." "Inappropriate?" Maya stopped pacing, her voice rising. "He fixed my lawnmower. He offered me advice on my car. He's been more supportive of my college applications than either of you have." Tears stung her eyes, blurring her vision. "That's not fair, Maya," Carol said, her voice softening. "We've been busy." "Exactly," Maya cried, throwing her hands up in exasperation. "You're always busy. Mike actually listens to me. He treats me like a person, not a project." She sank into the armchair, the fight draining from her. "And for the record," she added, her voice barely a whisper, "there's nothing romantic between us. He's just a friend. A good friend. Something you clearly don't think I'm capable of having." The silence that followed was heavy, punctuated only by the ticking of the grandfather clock in the hallway. Maya looked from her mother's worried face to her father's pained expression. She felt a pang of guilt, but the hurt and frustration were stronger. "People are going to talk no matter what," she said finally, her voice firmer now. "But I'm not going to stop being friends with Mike because of some ridiculous neighborhood gossip. He's been there for me when you haven't. And if you can't understand that, then I don't know what to tell you." She pushed herself out of the chair, grabbed her backpack, and headed for the stairs, leaving her parents to grapple with the uncomfortable truth she had just laid bare. The scent of simmering pot roast, meant to be comforting, now felt suffocating. Distance and doubt. The tomato plants listed like drunken soldiers, begging for support. Mike knelt, fingers sinking into the yielding earth, the perfume of turned soil and bruised greenery rising around him. Each hammer strike against the stake resonated, a primal rhythm against the discord brewing next door. Even this familiar chore couldn't mute the escalating argument. Maya's voice, sharp with desperation, cut through the air, a plea he recognized before the words formed. Then, her mother's voice, brittle as shattered glass, drifted over the hedge. "Irresponsible. Squandering your potential." Mike's gut twisted. The cadence was painfully familiar, echoes of his own turbulent adolescence. The specifics blurred, unnecessary. He understood, with a sinking feeling, that he was the fulcrum of this fight, the reason behind the raised voices. Or at least, his connection to Maya was. He stood abruptly, the tomato plant wobbling, its future uncertain. He needed the refuge of his own four walls. Now. The screen door slammed behind him, a sharp punctuation to his retreat. He flipped on the television, the banal chatter of a daytime show filling the sudden void, a sonic wallpaper he didn't truly register. The argument next door replayed in his mind, vivid and unwelcome. A vice gripped his chest. He should have anticipated this. He was old enough to offer guidance, not entanglement. What had possessed him, allowing their closeness? The following morning, he spied Maya tending her flower beds as he headed for the mailbox. She stood, trowel poised in midair, a hopeful smile lighting her features. A hand lifted in greeting. He averted his eyes, becoming intensely focused on the mundane task, the cool metal a stark contrast to the heat rising in his neck. A mumbled "morning" escaped his lips, his gaze fixed firmly on the ground. He hurried back inside, burdened by the weight of her disappointment. A fleeting glimpse of her face etched itself in his memory, the vanished smile, replaced by a flicker of bewilderment, then a deeper shadow of hurt. Inside, he performed meaningless rituals, realigning books, buffing the spotless counter. Anything to avoid the window. Anything to avoid confronting the truth. He was safeguarding her. That was the mantra he repeated. Shielding her from himself, from societal judgment, from the inevitable train wreck of a relationship with no future. But as the hours crawled by, the silence from next door pressing down like a suffocating blanket, he couldn't deny the creeping feeling that protection was a convenient lie. He was simply being a coward. Honest words. The porch swing creaked a mournful rhythm as Maya waited. Each tick of the wind chime felt like a judgment. She smoothed down the floral print of her sundress, the thin cotton doing little to calm her nerves. Taking a deep breath, she rapped on Mike's weathered oak door. The latch clicked and Mike stood framed in the doorway, his brow furrowed in a perpetual expression of mild surprise. He wore his usual uniform, a faded blue t-shirt and well-worn jeans. "Maya. Everything all right?" His voice held a note of concern that tugged at her heart. Can I talk to you for a minute?" She gestured tentatively toward the porch. He hesitated, then stepped aside. "Sure, come on in." They settled onto the swing, the chains groaning under their combined weight. The air hung thick and humid, carrying the scent of freshly cut grass and honeysuckle from the nearby garden. Maya fidgeted, picking at a loose thread on her dress. "Look, Mike, I wanted to say thank you. For everything. For fixing the mower, for helping me with the garden, for just being a good neighbor." He shifted uncomfortably. "It was nothing, Maya. Glad to help." "It wasn't nothing. You've been incredibly kind. And I appreciate it more than you know." She met his gaze, her own eyes earnest. "I just wanted to make sure that you don't think that I'm expecting anything more from this friendship." The words hung in the air, heavy and unspoken until now. Mike's face flushed a slow, creeping red. He looked away, focusing on a distant point in the neighbor's yard. I enjoy your company, Maya. You're bright and funny and it's nice having someone to talk to." He paused, then added quietly, "I guess I was a little worried I might have misread things." A wave of relief washed over Maya. "I enjoy your company too, Mike. A lot. You're easy to talk to. And you always give good advice." She reached out and gently squeezed his arm. "But that's all it is, okay? Friendship." He nodded, the red in his face slowly receding. He ran a hand through his thinning hair. "Okay. Friendship. That's good. That's what I thought." He didn't quite meet her eyes. Maya watched him, a flicker of sadness in her chest. She knew he craved connection, the kind she couldn't offer. But perhaps, she thought, friendship was enough. For now. "So friends?" she asked, extending her hand. He grasped it, his grip surprisingly firm. "Friends." Friendship restored. The sun beat down on Maya's back as she wrestled with the stubborn soil. Mike, his brow furrowed in concentration, gently took the trowel from her hands. "Here," he said, his voice a low rumble, "try loosening the earth around the roots first. They're probably compacted." He demonstrated, his touch surprisingly delicate for such large hands. Maya watched, absorbing his technique. "Like this?" she asked, mimicking his movements. "Exactly," Mike nodded, a small smile playing on his lips. "Gardening's all about patience. Just like, well, most things, I guess." They worked in comfortable silence for a while, the only sounds the chirping of crickets and the rustle of leaves in the gentle breeze. Maya found herself telling Mike about her disastrous attempt at making salsa last summer, the one that ended with her, red-faced and teary-eyed, gulping down milk straight from the carton. Mike chuckled, a warm, genuine sound that made her feel lighter. He recounted his own gardening mishaps, a rogue zucchini that took over his entire backyard, a battle with a family of particularly brazen squirrels. Later that evening, as the sky deepened into shades of violet and orange, Maya's parents approached Mike's doorstep, their faces etched with a mixture of shame and apprehension. "Mike," her father began, his voice unusually subdued, "we owe you an apology." Her mother stepped forward. "We were wrong about you. About everything. We judged you unfairly, and we are so sorry." She extended a hand. "Thank you for being such a good friend to Maya." Mike shook her hand, his gaze steady. "It's all right," he said, though a flicker of hurt still lingered in his eyes. "I understand. I value her friendship. And it was important to me that your family did too. From across the street, Patty Miller watched the scene unfold from behind her lace curtains. She saw the genuine remorse on Maya's parents' faces, the quiet acceptance in Mike's posture, and the warmth that radiated between them. A pang of guilt resonated within her. She had been so quick to jump to conclusions, so eager to fuel the neighborhood gossip mill. Now, staring at the tableau of reconciliation, she felt a profound sense of shame. Maybe, just maybe, she had been wrong. She moved away from the window, resolving to bake Mike a pie. A peace offering of sorts. The next afternoon, Maya found Mike repotting a delicate orchid. "Hey," she said, leaning against the fence. "What do you say we order pizza, and watch that cheesy sci-fi movie I know you secretly love?" Mike grinned, a genuine, unguarded smile that reached his eyes. "It's a date," he said.